For life.
Perfect.
Oh, I love it. How
Guys,
is it?
welcome back.
To testing normal.
A little extra music there, no worries. Episode 131, coming to you live from our own individual studios.
New York. Wait.
New York, baby.
I'm Jordan.
This is Curtis. And this is a podcast where we talk about anything and everything we want, man.
That's right.
And usually, oftentimes, it's kind of world events and what's going on and our opinions and other people's thoughts and concerns and hopes and dreams surrounding all that fun stuff. So, as is tradition that we are trying to create, we're going to start off the podcast again with the TILs. The Today I Learned. And some of these I think are pretty juicy, pretty interesting.
I just have one.
You just have one? Oh, snap. Okay, I'll do two, and then you can do one.
Okay.
How about that? Perfect. All right. Today I learned rugby was actually once an Olympic sport. The USA won the gold medal at the Olympics of 1920, which is surprising me. Like, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And again, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Plus.
Pretty close.
And again at the Olympics in 1924. The UK, where the game was invented, never actually won.
That's pretty awesome.
Kind of crazy.
Wish we could do that in soccer. But we can't. So
The U.S. is not very good at soccer.
Did-
Okay, my second TIL, and then you can go.
Okay.
Because I got three.
Okay.
Today I learned Rio de Janeiro was once the capital of Portugal, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah.
Following the conquest of Portugal by Napoleon, the Portuguese royal family fled to Brazil between 1808 and 1821. They then established the capital of Portugal in Rio de Janeiro.
Weird.
Isn't that crazy? Crazy?
I
had no idea. It's kind of cool.
We would maybe be seeing that again, cool. But the whole Ukraine thing isn't necessarily the capital that they want. It's the rest of it.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see.
Today I learned an FBI whistleblower, I don't know what year, reported multiple problems in forensic cases. And after years of the FBI seeking to ruin him, his claims were investigated and a report showed that forensic hair analysis was flawed or inaccurate over 90% of the time.
Whoa. Whoa. That's
I did not dig
that's
into
not
that, but
good.
can you imagine how much of that messed some people up?
Oh yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
safely say I just want all the alphabet
That's
groups disbanded?
that's VANANAS.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Very interesting though. Hmm. Yeah, I wonder how many wrongful convictions or whatever that could have been attributed to as well.
it's probably just
Interesting.
white people though.
Maybe. Maybe. Hmm.
Maybe.
Okay. My last TIL is today I learned, contrary to myth, embassies are technically still soil of the host country, but host country laws don't apply within the premises. Because I've always been told that
It's
that embassy, that soil, that's that country's soil officially.
yeah.
But apparently
I didn't ever
it's
really
not.
think that. I thought it was kind of like a, like a portable playpen you set up. Like that's my kid's bed, but the ground it's sitting on isn't.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
that's more
Well,
what it's
because if
like.
you think about it, like, what if it was like, the U.S. embassy in Russia, and we just built 200 stories beneath that country? How realistic would the Russian government allow a massive complex being constructed underneath that facility? Probably not to that
No,
degree.
you don't want to dig down in Russia though. They haven't had like great luck with things in their ground and earth.
Well, actually, so this is something I watched a documentary on. I believe the countries where the embassies are established, they're the ones that actually help facilitate the construction of the building, and so that helps prohibit some of that concern. But then,
There was quite a few of those when we were in Italy, like
yeah,
different ones we went by that were
right,
like guarded and people just thought it was normal. It's
right.
kind of weird.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
But then once the country moves in, then basically their job is to debug that embassy building, like to find all the things that the other country had planted to try to spy on them. So that's what happened
Like,
in Russia. Actually, the U.S. embassy,
oh,
they had a
uh-huh.
clock that had a camera in it that they didn't know about for years. In like one of the main offices, they had all these kind of hidden spyware within their own
And then they
embassy.
found out like they were all secretly being drugged so that they would be more physically fit.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, is that something that's happened? Have you heard this, or is this?
No, like
Oh,
just saying that the Russians do that to all their
oh, right. So they're
people.
athletes.
Yeah, it was an Olympic joke.
That's
It
funny.
was a bad one.
I like
I
it.
don't. They would just because there's so much of it there. They would accidentally drug our people too. Just
They're like, it's in the water.
performance enhancing drugs.
They just put it in the water now.
Yeah, they just do. That's just in their tap water now.
It's everywhere. Yeah, just keep
That
used
makes
to it,
sense.
guys.
That way they don't have to hide it. They don't. They just have to make them pee somewhere else.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So this week,
Another week.
another
more of the
week,
same.
I was talking with my buddy Peter, and I was talking with him about how these past 2.5 years, it's just been like unending, unrelenting, crazy amount of events, right? And world events,
Yeah.
and local events, like from our ice storms to our wildfires to our pandemics to our wars to our economic strifes to our political strifes to this whole non-ceasing craziness, right? Um, and that's kind of exhausting. It's kind of tiring. Like I was thinking about the other day, I was like, I'm tired of just the constant. I almost want it to just be boring in the world right now. Like I'm kind of ready for that.
I think it's just what I'm sick of, and I was reminded of it. You've listened to like you and I have passed stuff back and forth from Julian Assange,
Mm-hmm.
the reporter that kind of blew the whistle but tried to do it safely and then got blamed for some stuff.
Right.
But I saw a clip of his that was a little bit longer than normal, and it was a little while back. I think it was a few years back. And one of the quotes that I had, I think that is fitting for kind of the subject of the last 3 weeks, but tonight, is he said that soon it will become normal. He was talking about the new normal, which is like this quote, that phrase that we've had thrown at us over and over. And it's always just changed, like especially in our state, constantly changing and just changing the goalposts and everything. But he said soon it will become normal in the West for there to be constant war. Like he was basically alluding to that's what the powers that be want. They want us to be the norm, that war is okay and it's just always going on, which to some degree there's conflict in the world, but the level of conflict that we've seen and that we're seeing now, I do feel like they want it to be like a normal thing. And it reminded me, and this just kind of sets us up for some of the stuff, and then I want to ask you a funny question. It reminded me of, I went and saw a farmer speak. His name's Joel Salatin. If you guys haven't heard of him, he's this cool older guy. I don't know if he's still alive or not. He has tons of books on sustainable farming. But he's not like a hippie or anything. Like, I guess some of his beliefs would be, they kind of mesh well, but he was talking about how the way that we can change our world is if we break free from factory farms, because they feed the oil wars. And I'm constantly reminded of that, of him saying that. I went to Willamette University, he was there, and he's like, if you really are against war, you should be against factory farming, because they use more oil than anyone. And that's what we war over. And that's what we ship over the seas and everything. Is like, if we could get away from that and get back to sustainable farming. And he at his farm, it's not very big, sustains like, I think it was like between 3,000 and 10,000 families. And it's like this small farm and he will take anyone in. It's an open farm. Anyone can come in and see the process at any time they want. And that's one of the things he said is, if you want to stop wars, stop factory farming. Stop putting up roadblocks for people like me that want to do sustainable farming. And we'll use less oil and less tractors. Less tractors means less oil, and less tractors means less chemicals in the ground. And it just keeps going on
less,
and on.
Transportation of goods. Because if it's local,
right,
the distance.
And he wasn't crazy, because someone asked him like, well, how do you get like your bananas? He goes, well, I'm not nuts. He's like, there are things that need to be imported, but they don't have to be everything. Like, it can be limited so that it's not as much of an impact. He's like, so I buy my bananas from out of state because I like bananas, but I don't buy my beef. I don't buy my tomatoes. I don't.
So you saw him speak at Willamette?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So Joe Salatin, he's an American farmer, like you were saying. He's actually still alive. He's 65. He was on Joe Rogan, actually.
He's a really cool guy, and he's very, very reasonable. You'd love him because he's like he's what I would consider libertarian Republican, like somewhere in between, where like reasonable
and more moderate.
But more moderate, doesn't like wars. He's not the war side of the right, which.
Dude, he's from Venezuela. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Interesting. Venezuelan. Oh, Venezuelan.
I've met people that have gone and they apprenticed with him. He does like apprentice programs to teach farmers how to do what he does. It's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Anyway,
yeah,
that was I keep thinking of all that. It's like, man, there's this, we've said it multiple times, but this is multifaceted issues, but that
kind of ties us into
factory farming is,
that ties
me into my funny question of, when was the last time you saw a wild cow?
Great.
We can come back to this, but I think that this is a good time for a break.
Yes.
And hilarious story.
For anybody out there that's interested, every year at the Expo Center in downtown Portland, there is a Lego convention. It's called like Brick City. And it is really cool. You should definitely take your kiddos if they're interested in Legos. They got really cool exhibits. But as we were driving on I-5 in the opposite lane, luckily,
pull it up here just
was a long, like for miles and miles and miles, backed up traffic. And I was like, oh my gosh, there must have been a terrible wreck. We couldn't figure out
First question, what's on your hand?
And that's a stamp from Legoland.
Okay.
It's a stamp. So can you make it bigger? I don't know if you can make it bigger. Oh, no, actually that's good. Okay, that's perfect. Yeah. Okay, so here, turn the audio on. Start from
the audio won't play through. Sorry, I don't have it set up to play through.
Oh, shoot. Okay, so what I'm showing here is just these massive lines of cars. But every about 15 to 20 cars, a massive cow is trotting along I-5. And there ended up being like at least 7 or 8 big heifers.
One of them just running down. Look at that one. Look at that one. Just
look at that. It's nuts. Like right next to these cars that are like freaking out because like most of these cows are as like taller than these sedan vehicles.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're big cows.
Oh yeah.
And several times I was driving by it, and the people like the
That one,
cows were
he's
like
just like,
right.
have you guys seen any grass?
Yeah, you guys, do you know where you were going? I don't know where we're going. It was like a stampede on I-5 though, essentially. It was crazy. It was madness. But it was a event to say the least. It was kind of exciting. So
it was a cattle truck that tipped over. Am I right?
Yeah. And I-5 was closed. It was closed for 3 hours while they were trying to
North
wrangle
and south,
those
right?
cows. No, it was all northbound.
Okay. Yeah, because we had
the
another
Entangled
friend who sometimes listens and comments here. He was driving up and saw that something was going on, and they went around it. And they went around it to Portland Airport and then back to Beaverton and beat somebody driving through it by like 40 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It was kind of a funny thing to be closed, right? For that reason. Obviously, it would have been incredibly infuriating if you're the person that had to be stuck behind those.
Or the driver.
Cows.
How do you catch all those things too?
I know. How do you wrangle
And
them?
can you imagine being a cow in a trailer tipping over like that?
Yeah. But I guess he was going slow enough because I didn't see any, obvious indication of dead cows.
Right. Well, it's good. Do you smell barbecue? I wonder if like somebody was like, "Don't let it go to waste."
Yeah, there would have been. There was probably some like random pickups with some like legs sticking up or cow legs sticking up.
If you had a cow, that would do some damage. Like I think it would be like hitting a short moose or something. Like
a sturdy moose for sure. Sturdy.
Yeah.
Well, all that to be said, those vehicles lost a lot of gas waiting on I-5, which ties us into this perfect, terrible time to be sitting on I-5 wasting gas, right?
Yeah.
But Jordan and I last week we had brought up the conversation about how Russia only supplies about 6% or 8%, 6 to 8%, something like that, of U.S. oil. And so we were like, if Russia doesn't supply U.S. oil to that,
209,000 barrels a day.
Which shows how much we use, which is crazy.
Yeah, no, it's an insane amount that we use. It's a pretty small, even that's a lot, obviously, but it's a fairly small percent. But we're not a small buyer from them, but we're not the biggest buyer of Russia's.
But I was trying to figure out why in the world, if we only had used 6% of Russian oil, why do our prices go up 20%? Like, why is that disparity there?
Yeah.
And from my research, which was incredibly extensive and very thorough.
I'm sure it was. It doesn't really need to be once you kind of understand there are some intricacies that you could learn, but
some of the biggest reasons essentially is that Russia is the biggest supplier of oil for multiple markets. So even though they're a small market for us, they're a big market for other countries. So Europe gets 60% of its oil from Russia. 60% of its oil exports, which is nuts. Europe is so dependent on Russia. China gets 20% of its oil exports from Russia. Some of the countries like, obviously Saudi Arabia doesn't really get that much from them because they have a lot of other places.
They're a pretty big exporter.
Purchase from them. Yeah, and our biggest export, where we get the majority of our oil is from Saudi Arabia area.
It's just baffling to me that
actually no, sorry, I take that back. We get most of our oil comes from Canada.
Yes,
that's where the majority.
Right.
Majority of our crude oil comes from Canada. So this is actually, I had a statistic about this. Russia ranked 9th among top 10 countries that the United States relies on crude oil imports. In December 2021, the U.S. imported 90,000 barrels per day from Russia. From Canada, though, per day, this is nuts. Per day like from Canada. Million. We import 4.85 million from Canada every day. Mexico was the second largest, which is surprising to me. That was almost 500,000. And then Saudi Arabia was following behind them at 475,000.
Right.
But all of those other countries that rely so heavily, the European countries, the Chinese, and some of the Eastern countries, they rely on Russia. And so when their prices go up, they then affect the world market of oil supply, right? And then that then affects all the other supplies on those other countries that then start using our normal resources, which then make those prices go up as well. So they're all connected in that aspect.
It's just baffling to me because, I mean, when I think about this, it's as confusing to me as when we make our insulin crazy expensive here, just because and ours is the only one that's expensive. But like a lot of the world, it's one of the more inexpensive things that you could buy.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, we shouldn't be as big of a user of it, but we are, right? And I'm not talking about type 1 people. I know they can't control it, but type 2, right. I'm sorry. Like there's something you can do. Most times there's something you can do. But that's what I think of is when there's like this kind of almost like false scarcity that's created. And I think that's what we were experiencing when in 2016, we were pretty well energy independent, and so we weren't tied to the global market. And I would think that would be a good place to get, at least in my mind, because if oil goes up, say the national average, like most people that drive and they can't not, I saw a quote that was awful. Like it was like you shouldn't be concerned about the price of oil. You should be wondering why you have to have a car in the city. I'm like, no, that is dumb. Like stop. If you don't want to drive a car, fine with me. But it doesn't mean that somebody must provide you with mass transit to get around. There are other things to solve that besides that. And by the way, a lot of times what pays for that is the people driving cars. So you probably want them to. But if people are spending more money on oil, which just goes and lines the pockets of the global markets of oil, that would drive down the earnings for other U.S. companies, right? There's
price manipulation going on.
100%.
I mean, there's it's blatant. For sure, there's people taking advantage of the situation. And I mean, honestly, they could raise the prices and have the same supply and us not even know it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like there's no way of us lame folk, basically, the common folk, I guess I should say, having the true ability to know, do we actually have a supply issue, or is this a perfect time to take advantage of this?
Or are there people that are like, well, I benefit when we buy from Russia, which we know 100% that's going on in our government right now. From the very top down, we know that there's 100% evidence that that's happened in the past. It's happening now. And they benefit from us buying from Russia. They don't benefit from us buying from here. So it's all about greed and money. So they don't care. They already have theirs. And so this is, we've had this conversation a lot. Like wherever you land in the spectrum of what the government should do for you, the number one thing it should do is protect its people. Well, part of that is don't play the global supply game. Like if they're going to be doing something, it should be get energy independent so that we don't have to rely on somebody else and provide a better life for your people.
It's interesting. I was listening to a journalist, and she had been since 2014. Essentially, she's been kind of studying Putin and researching him and his ethos and his politics and his decisions. And it's kind of like almost like her job is a reporter on him. Like that's all she does is just focus on him, which is kind of an interesting, can you imagine if my only job was to follow you all of your life and to figure out why you're thinking what you're thinking, how you're interacting with people around you. I wasn't going to admit to it, but it was just it's just a crazy job anyways. But
you think that would there's a lot of movies about people that do similar things that go crazy that are based on true stories. That would make you dedicating your life to something like, I'm not saying that it's not important and that it maybe shouldn't, that it needs to be done, but still that's got to mess with your head.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But it was fascinating because she kind of broke down all the steps throughout the years that brought him to this point and this decision and the thinking behind it. And it was really kind of fascinating. He truly and honestly, since the USSR broke up, he has never recognized Ukraine as a country.
Oh, I'm sure he hasn't.
He's always thought of it is Russia. And so his mentality and the way he approaches all these things is literally like he's restoring this lost
Oh yeah, it was like
piece of his country, right?
it
And
was shameful that it was lost.
right,
Like, and
right.
if there's one thing, I mean, this sounds really, really bad, but did you watch that clip that I sent you? Did I send it to you about like people that are so evil their name will never be used again? Like you'll never find a kid named Adolf. Like,
Yeah. Okay.
so
That's fascinating.
I know, yeah. He was saying like, Jeffrey Dahmer ate and killed lots of people, but people still call their kid Jeffrey. So there definitely is a line at which people won't name things after those people anymore, but people are still going around naming their kids Jeffrey, but probably not Putin and probably not Hitler.
Well, can you imagine this mindset of, guys, put yourself in this situation. What if, because they're actually, I looked this up. Ukraine's population, previous to this war was around 44 million. Okay. Canada's population was around 38 million. So less than Ukraine even. What if it would be extremely advantageous as far as resources go? Ukraine had a ton of natural resources, a ton of natural gas, a ton of oil, a ton of ports. Very advantageous as far as for the economy for Russia to have Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be very advantageous for US to have Canada. What if we got into a situation where we were like, no. Canada is not part of their own independent country. They're part of the US.
Wouldn't that involve Europe though? Because aren't they like still like somehow like beholden to the Queen or something?
They're not beholden to her. I don't believe they are. I believe that they were a former colony, right? And so they have certain like
I don't understand. I think it was like they didn't fight.
And they have French too, right? Because like Quebec is all French.
Yeah.
So they're not technically part of countries. But think about it, like we would finally be able to connect the lower 49 with Alaska, or the lower 48, excuse me, with Alaska. So we would have that kind of, and natural goods resources. As the future evolves, potable water is going to be one of the most valuable aspects in our environment. Canada has the largest natural resources of potable water in the world. I wager Canada might become part of the United States one of these days. Maybe that's crazy.
This is interesting. I did look this up. So at least in this 2013 10 Things Queen of England still does for Canada, the number one thing is she's the head of state. Technically speaking, Queen Elizabeth is the sovereign of the parliamentary democracy and constitutional monarchy of Canada, unless you frequently use Canadian money or are particularly savvy with regard to Canadian politics. You may not have known that they had any kind of monarchy. So yes, they're still tied somewhat. I don't know how that would involve them now. They'd probably be like, yeah, whatever. Not saying we should
share a
invade
sovereign.
Canada.
What does a sovereign mean though?
Their government,
strategic partnership.
I'm sure as much as ours confuses them, theirs confuses me. So
France and Canada. I wonder why they speak French then.
I think they probably had a lot of people that immigrated. Anyway, yes. So it is, the gas prices are nuts. And here's
it's interesting.
The thing is like, I feel like what's being pushed, because you see it now, like even Oregon here, they brought back we'll pay you $7,500 to get an electrical car.
What?
Yeah, like it's wild. But here's the thing.
It's implemented right now?
I believe. Yeah, I saw a thing for it just this week.
What?
So
I get a Tesla up in here.
But here's the thing is like, and that's fine. Like I think electric cars have their place. But we don't have the infrastructure for it, and it's still not clean energy. Like it's not like most of our energy isn't. So it's like, yeah, it's a good solution maybe in the future. Should we cut China out of this whole thing and we make them here and we mine sustainably and we do these metals sustainably and we upgrade our electrical grid so that it can handle it? Because it's saying like to charge the car quickly, you'd have to get like a class 3 charger, and to do that in a home would be about 50 grand. And if you couldn't install them in all homes in a neighborhood, the electrical grid wouldn't do it. So even if the electrical grid could handle it, it would take about $50,000 to install a faster charger. Otherwise, it takes about 8 hours to charge your car. So where where oil has it beat, has things beat, is you're able to go and fill up in like 5 minutes and then drive for 300-400 miles and get places. And so, yeah, like you could make the argument like, well, you could live in a city, but like your city, like if tomorrow the world fell, the city is the worst place to be because it doesn't produce anything for itself.
Well,
it's
and
not,
this makes
it's
me
not
think,
sustainable at all. Like,
this makes me think that it actually is kind of a good thing to have these practical plug-in hybrids. So like in my situation, I drive to work.
Like you have gas.
It's about, so like I've been looking at these Toyota Primes, and it's, there's a couple, there's like the Hyundai Santa Fe, the Toyota Prime, and there's several other.
Well, I mean, like
essentially
like
you can
a Prius.
drive like
the Prius is a plug-in hybrid in other countries. It's not.
Well,
here.
there is. Yeah, right. But these are like SUVs, which is kind of cool. But you get like 30 to 50 miles on a charge. And then if you use more than that charge, then it kicks into gas if you want.
But that's the
like
thing.
Literally, that's to work and back.
Yeah.
That's just electrical for me.
Because
if I want to drive to Bend,
right,
I can kick in my gas.
That's the thing that I've been thinking about lately, because I love the power of electrical cars. I mean, we're doing it. Like all of our engines, like our trains, we know that electric motors are stronger. We know that they go longer. We know that they're more efficient. They're diesel and they power them, right? So we know that is like what needs to happen. But there has to be middle ground, and there has to be somewhere. And so we have to get our energy, whether we get it from the sun, from the ground, from
nuclear,
natural gas, nuclear, whatever. We have to get independent of other countries so that we're not, number one, if anything else, like forget the whole war thing. We all know that happens because of this. If we want to be sustainable, don't ship it. If you have to cross an ocean, that's too far. Like make that the rule. Like, and I mean, love him or hate him, that is the one thing that Trump did that was right. He said we're gonna get our oil here. We're not doing that anymore. Like, and
wasn't most of that oil for exporting though? Like that OPEC line, it actually goes it ends up in the Gulf for export.
But even then, if we're producing it and it lowers that price, and it could be routed here, I don't care. Like that's the thing. We shouldn't be shipping oil here.
To be fair, that oil still can be brought in. I mean, it still is. Like it's brought here.
It just has to Canada. It just has to be trucked.
Just not on a pipeline.
Yeah,
right.
It has to be trucked. Which, there's accidents that happen. Cows get out of their trucks and trucks wreck. If you have a pipeline,
but gosh. I would say with the pipeline, even I would still want there to be trucks, because
there still would be.
If you're depending on one pipe that could get blown up.
No. Yeah. Absolutely.
You wouldn't want just the pipe.
That was just one main thing. And the thing is that they shut that down and then they approved one in the Middle East. Like, okay. Like, okay, you're for pipelines, but only if we're there somewhere else. Like, we can't.
Well, yeah, of course. Of course. It's more advantageous to have take the smoothie, take the slushy from another country, man.
Yeah, but I mean, with the supply we have here, if it's like 200 years of our current use, bare minimum.
I wonder what the year use is. Is that what it is in the U.S.? Our U.S. stock supply?
Yeah, if we just were here,
or
it's around that. Like, if we can't figure it out in that long, you know what? We still shouldn't have been shipping it. Like.
Let's see.
Figure out a way to make it.
Can you play, guys? There was an interesting video I wanted you guys to hear in it. I apologize in advance.
The sound isn't hooked up right. Sorry.
I can't do sound. Mm-mm. Shoot. Man.
I have to set that up beforehand. And I didn't.
Bummer. Okay. What if I talk about another article while you set that up? Would that be possible?
Might mess our sound up here. That's the problem.
Oh, okay. So I'll well maybe just click on this link and you can read the subtitles. But it's a really fascinating
which link
situation. The first one.
Oh. I see what you're saying.
So it's the title of the article, and we'll have it linked for you guys. It's here's how quickly it takes to get arrested for protesting in Moscow. And there were several groups of protesters speaking and talking in it's called the Menizhaya Square in Russia. So basically, it shows this one girl. She wasn't even doing things. She just shows a little piece of paper, and it has 2 words on it, which is, I'm not exactly sure what those 2 words are. But like instantly,
Yeah, what did they
please see
say?
her and then take her away. I think it says like no war. So the girl gets taken away. Okay. Then a different girl, this guy's like interviewing people that are walking around this area. Like some of the people aren't even protesting, right? So this guy videos this one girl, show a sign, she gets taken away like instantly. Then like a couple seconds later, another girl walks up to him and she says, "Hey, are you only like recording people that oppose this situation? Like, are you taking other people's opinions? Are you like recording them as well?" Like she was kind of like saying, "Hey, I'm a proponent of Putin." Like she was trying to figure out like, why aren't you advocating for both sides of this conversation? Well, within seconds after she starts talking to him, just being like, "Hey, like advocating for Putin," all of a sudden a bunch, you're going to see it in a second here, right? Police grab her and take her away. And so now she's like taken into a van and taken off to like punishment as well. But she was literally doing nothing. Like she was literally advocating for Putin. It's like, so apparently even people that are advocating for Putin are going to get arrested in this situation. So
they
basically,
just don't want people talking about it.
They just don't want people to talk. They don't. It's crazy. It was crazy. Crazy.
We I talk to my kids about this a lot. Like we live in a country with some rights that we just believe is normal, that I hope we never lose. Mm-hmm. That we're very lucky to have, and that, you know, that's why freedom of speech, regardless if you agree with it or not, that I would fight for. I believe that's like one of the last bastions of hope, is that people have the freedom. And we've seen that attacked. We haven't seen it necessarily removed, but we've seen that attacked, whether it be through private businesses, through people that think that they have the right to do that on their own platform. And I think that will continue to be argued. But this is something that I could say to point to go, maybe we shouldn't give that ability to just anybody to decide what people can and can't say.
Well, and then in Russia, a good example, I mean, for whatever you feel about social media, where whatever agenda it's pushing, which can significantly impact the society, 100% agree with that. But just this week, right, or last week, Russia banned Facebook. Right. So there's like, it's a really good example of anytime a government wants to limit the ability for its people to be influenced, that's almost a good indicator that the government itself is out of control.
Yeah. Well, that's why I titled this episode that, because I knew we were going to get to that, it's another quote from Julian Assange. She said, "If lies birth war, then truth can birth peace."
Ooh. Well, that brings me to the most important topic of the night, guys. The second episode of Star Trek Picard aired this past week, and it was fantastic. Annie and I, my lovely wife, we, at the end of the first episode of the second season of Picard, we sat there in silence and just started clapping.
Did you?
We did a slow clap.
Did you shed a tear?
So good.
At all?
There was probably a little bit of a tear. I'm not going to lie. There was probably a little bit of a tear.
Which is impressive, because usually you have drier eyes.
I know.
If you cry, that means it's really sad.
Dude, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. I usually have very dry eyes.
Yeah. Maybe when your eyes are dry and stinging, you should just watch sad movies.
Oh my gosh. It has to be a very sad movie for me to cry. Very.
We'll find it. We will find it.
Star Trek.
Speaking
Do you have any other?
Let's talk about things going on in the world that isn't Russia for a second.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen the new Batman? I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
Okay.
But I liked it.
I'm not a huge fan of Robert Pattinson, so that kind of turned me off. But
wait,
is it worth it?
Which one is Robert Pattinson? Oh, no. Yeah. So I saw a meme this week that was hilarious because I believe he did really well.
Okay.
I think he actually fit the part really
That's
well.
good to
And
know.
here's why. He played a vampire really well, right? And that's very similar to Batman. You've got to be pale. You're a creature of the night. You don't go in the sun. You wear all black. Like it's basically, he's just a masculine version of Twilight, right? But it was like a picture of him, and it said, "This man spent 15 years being known as the guy from Twilight and practiced for Batman."
Yeah, he seems
It's good, and
too frail. It seems like he'd be too frail for Batman.
no, he does a good job. And the reason why is because this is, without giving anything away, because I for comic book fans out there, I think this one's a little bit more up there, and that's why I like Dark Knight. It was dark. It wasn't this like hee Batman. This one is very like it's conflicting, like, and it's way more like, because that's the thing about the original, like the idea behind Batman is that he's on that line. Like that's why he doesn't use guns. Like you'll notice he just uses non-lethal force, is because he knows he's so close to that line, he would just go over it. And so he doesn't allow himself to use those types of weapons. And so there's even a line in it where he says something about like, no guns, like, and does that. I really enjoyed it. It's really long for anyone wanting to go, like, be ready, settle in with a nice thing of popcorn and watch it. But I found it entertaining. I took my
It's
little
based on a
kids,
true
judge
story
me
though,
if you
right?
want. Yeah, totally. Yes. It's about a man who has a cave and bats.
Yeah, it could happen. It could happen. Yeah, I got a couple other little articles that I'm like, it's
just like, brr.
Yeah, too much drama. I don't want more drama in the world. I think we need happy thoughts, shower thoughts. I think that's what we need.
I do too. But with that said, I really like that quote for tonight that Julian Assange said, is that lies bring war, then the truth brings peace. And that's why the freedom to speak and to say things and to bring truth and to discuss that is so important.
And even be able to allow lies, though. I mean, to be able to have lies, you need to be able to have truth. You have to be able to have lies.
You run the risk of it with freedom of speech, but because of it, you allow it all out there, and you let people.
Because the only way to beat bad speech is with better speech.
Right. If you try to drown it out, whether it be good or bad, it just gets worse. I mean, we've seen that through history, right? People that have beliefs that people don't like, they attack them, whatever, and it just for some reason becomes stronger. And so if you really don't like something, you're best just to leave it alone. Unless it's like coming after you and attacking you, then let's go. Kind of like that video, India lashing out in the end.
Let me know.
Or if it's a cow, avoid it on the freeway. Yeah. That's another thing we've learned.
They're gonna get you. So they're gonna get you.
Shower.
All right. Shower thoughts. Shower thoughts. Well, this is kind of tying into the current state of our world, but I believe one of the main reasons, it's kind of crazy and not that crazy, but still needs to be commented on. One of the main reasons we're living in a relatively peaceful time is because we have thousands of destructive nuclear bombs pointed at each other for decades. So although it's terrifying and they could destroy us, they've also enabled the capacity to say, combatants can only go to this level. Otherwise, it will get to total destruction, mutual destruction.
It's the same idea as the Second Amendment, which is there can only be so much. Like Japan said, we'd never attack mainland America because there's a gun behind every bush, and we're just that crazy. I think it's kept us.
But they're all in Texas, though. They're all in Texas.
I don't know. There's a lot here, I'll tell you that.
The gun behind every bush, though. Bush, get it? Bush.
Bush, yeah, Texas. Oh, okay. Behind trees here. On that same vein of nuclear, if you own a nuclear bunker during this time, which, I mean, wasn't there a time when like nuclear bunkers were like a thing that they would build with homes, like during the Cold War and stuff like that? What if that comes back again? Like that.
What was that movie?
That drives the home value up.
where the guy lived in a bunker like all of his life.
Yes.
Oh, what was it? Oh,
It was
I love that movie.
Yeah, it was a cheesy comedy.
Oh, it was so good.
Anyway, if you own a nuclear bunker, you'd need to stay within a 10-mile radius of it at all times for it to be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, it'd be like you're rolling the dice.
Yep.
Truth. The princess who kissed the frog, and we read Tiana every day, pretty much. That's Tilly's favorite princess is Tiana. The princess who kissed the frog may have actually hallucinated that it turned into a prince. We don't know what type of frog that princess was kissing. That princess kissed a frog that gave her a DMT like trip.
Wasn't that like the whole thing behind Alice in Wonderland? It was just a drug trip.
I think there was supposedly the author that wrote it was supposedly experimenting with shrooms.
The thing was sitting on a mushroom, and then like she eats the thing, and then she gets crazier again, and she shrinks in size, and then she sees all these things, and they're all like colorful, and it's totally an LSD trip.
Yeah, or some type of wild trip.
Yeah. So here's another one. Nearly everyone values a human life over the life of a fish. Can we agree? I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
But few people would value a single human life over the life of every fish on the planet. Meaning that everyone has a certain number of fish that they would prefer to be alive.
Over them.
Yeah. Over Steve from work.
Whoa. Dude, that's a good one.
What's yours?
I like that one.
I think it would have to be really all. Cool. I don't know. I don't think there's a hard line.
There's a line though. There's a gray line.
Also, it would be impressive if someone gave you that option and they had round up all the fish. Like, how'd you do that?
Or they would just drop something like toxic in the water.
Yep.
Maybe. All right. My last shower thought is, you're not afraid of being alone in the dark. You're afraid of not being alone in the dark.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Unless you're with someone else. And then it's just the wrong person. Like you should have picked someone else to be alone in the dark with.
Then you're afraid of not being alone.
Yeah. Because there's certain people, like if I was in the dark with them, it doesn't matter what's coming at me. I'm like, I feel fairly confident in our chances here. People who are 20 have lived 10% of their life through COVID.
Yeah, I guess it's been yeah,
just about today.
That's crazy. It's a mind twist, man. That's crazy. Oh my gosh, can't believe
you're like, wait, no, let me do that math to carry the zero.
No, I was trying to think like, have we really been through
COVID
that long? But yeah, I guess we've been.
We're ready for life to be boring again, guys. Yeah. We'll end with that.
And that, my friends.
Curtis begging for boredom, please.
That, my friends, is testing normal.
And lower gas prices.
And maybe a plug-in hybrid.
Raising the gas prices are not going to make people
really
change to electric faster. We need
a plug-in hybrid
so much to happen before that happens.
So true. All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate y'all. We appreciate your time. Appreciate your thoughts. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that little bell button so that way when we go on live, you get a notification. And we hope you have a fantastic week, and we will shoot at you soon.
See you guys.
Peace.